The Prilorian Chief Counselor's 6 eyes bulged with utter shock as a massive human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Priloria Prime, dwarfing even the planet's impressive orbital defense grid. Only a moment earlier, the Galactic Council had been confidently dismissing humanity as a primitive newcomer, a disruptive but ultimately harmless species stumbling haphazardly into the stars. The sudden appearance of this enormous armada, bristling with weapons that even the ancient Prilorian Empire had never conceived of, shattered that delusion forever. In the gleaming central chamber of the Council Citadel, pandemonium erupted. Insectoid Kizik's clicked their mandibles in agitation as reptilian saurians hissed with fury. Avian quarry fluffed their feathers while aquatic hydran tentacles twitched spasmodically. Even the normally serene plant-like florans and incorporeal luminites crackled with anxiety. "Silence!" Councillor Craxon slammed a fist on the ornate table, his deep baritone reverberating. The male Prilorian's grey skin flushed darker as he tried to wrestle some order from the chaos. Intelligence reports streamed across his ocular implants, each more dire than the last. As the hubbub died down to a murmur, Craxon gestured sharply. A holographic star map snapped into focus above them, showing the aggressive expansion of human territory over just the last century. Colonies, shipyards, fortresses, a relentless red tide engulfing vast swathes of space that had remained unchanged for millennia. "The humans have advanced far more rapidly than we ever imagined," Craxon said gravely, manipulating the display. Sensor data flickered past, highlighting human technological leaps that should have taken a dozen species centuries to perfect. Impossibly efficient supply lines, devastatingly powerful ship-mounted weapons, unnaturally fast and agile fighter craft. "We assumed their aggression in border skirmishes was simple barbarian blustering," the Chief Counselor continued. "A child's tantrum to be swatted aside. We were wrong. This—" He jabbed a finger at the blockade around their very homeworld. "This is not a tantrum. This is a declaration of intent. Humanity means to challenge us here and now. If we cannot break this fleet, cannot repel them, Priloria Prime burns." And not just their homeworld. The entire Prilorian Empire, backbone of galactic civilization since time immemorial, would collapse. And what horrors would spill forth into that void, the Councillor shuddered to imagine. "We must hold the line here," Craxon declared, voice hard as Cluxon's steel. "For the sake of every species, for the very soul of our galaxy, this human invasion must be stopped, no matter the cost." The Galactic Council for once had no dissenting voice, only grim silence and the distant thunder of human warships poised to unleash an unthinkable apocalypse. Light years away from the chaos erupting in the Galactic Council chambers, the bridge of the human flagship TDS Prometheus thrummed with focused activity. Admiral Gary Parker stood tall at the command console, his piercing blue eyes scanning the tactical displays. Around him, his hand-picked bridge crew worked with smooth efficiency, coordinating the approach of their formidable fleet. To Parker's right, Commander Jack Reynolds monitored the ship's defensive systems, ensuring the shields and point defense turrets were primed for any potential hostilities. On the Admiral's left, Lieutenant Commander Maria Hernandez managed the fleet's communications, her fingers flying across the console as she relayed orders to the accompanying vessels. At the helm, Senior Chief Petty Officer Mike Thompson guided the Prometheus with steady hands, his weathered face a mask of concentration. The bridge crew moved like a well-oiled machine, a testament to the countless battles they had fought together against the Prilorians and other hostile alien races. Admiral Parker himself was a legend among the Terran Defense Forces. A veteran of numerous engagements, he had earned a reputation as a brilliant tactician and fearless leader. Now, the Terran Defense Council had entrusted him with a mission of utmost importance: to confront the Galactic Council and secure humanity's rightful place among the dominant powers of the galaxy. As the Prometheus and its 500-strong fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the fringes of the Prilorian system, Admiral Parker turned to Lieutenant Commander Hernandez. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," he ordered. his voice steady and commanding. "It's time we had a little chat." Hernandez nodded crisply, her fingers already dancing across the console. "Channel open, sir." Parker stepped forward, his image transmitted to the council chambers. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his tone leaving no room for argument, "I am Admiral Gary Parker of the Terran Defense Forces. I demand an immediate audience with the Council to discuss matters of galactic importance. The fate of us all may very well depend on your willingness to negotiate with humanity as equals." There was a tense pause as the Council members, still reeling from the sudden appearance of the human armada, conferred amongst themselves. Finally, a response crackled over the comm. "Admiral Parker," came the deep, grudging voice of Chief Counselor Craxon, "the Council will hear your demands. You are granted permission to approach Priloria Prime under a temporary truce. But be warned, any aggression will be met with the full might of the Prilorian Empire." Parker allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Understood, Counselor. I look forward to our discussion." As the channel closed, the Admiral turned to his crew. "Helm, set a course for Priloria Prime. Tactical. Maintain high alert status, but do not, I repeat, do not engage unless fired upon. It's time to show these aliens what humanity is truly capable of." The Prometheus surged forward, flanked by a small contingent of escort ships, as it made its way towards the heart of the Prilorian Empire. On the bridge, Admiral Parker stood resolute, ready to face the Council and fight for humanity's future among the stars. As Admiral Parker's shuttle touched down on the Prilorian planet's surface, the tension in the landing bay was palpable. A heavily armed squad of Terran Marines quickly deployed, securing the perimeter with practiced efficiency. Commander Reynolds took his place at the Admiral's side, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. A group of Prilorian guards, their insectoid features unreadable, escorted the human delegation through the winding corridors of the Council citadel. The air grew thick with anticipation as they approached the central chamber, where the fate of the galaxy would be decided. The massive doors swung open, revealing the gathered Council members. Admiral Parker strode forward, his steps confident and purposeful. He met the wary gazes of the assembled aliens with an unwavering stare, his posture radiating an unshakable resolve. Craxon, the Prilorian intelligence chief, stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with barely restrained hostility. "Admiral Parker," he hissed, "you dare to threaten the Galactic Council with your primitive fleet? You humans have grown too bold." Admiral Parker smiled thinly. "Chief Counselor Craxon, I assure you there is nothing primitive about our fleet or our technology." He tapped a command into his wrist console, and a holographic display sprang to life above the council table. Schematics and test footage of advanced human weapon systems played out in vivid detail. Antimatter torpedoes capable of annihilating entire battleships, energy shields that shrugged off the most powerful plasma cannons, and sleek warships that danced through space with impossible agility. "For decades, humanity has been quietly advancing," Admiral Parker explained. "We have developed a new form of faster-than-light travel that renders your early warning systems useless. Our ships can strike anywhere, at any time, and as you can see, our weapons are more than a match for anything the Prilorian Empire can field." Shocked murmurs rippled through the council chamber. The Saurian delegate slammed his fist on the table, his scales flushing an angry red. "This is an outrage. The humans have been deceiving us all along." "No," Admiral Parker countered calmly. "We have simply been preparing to take our rightful place among the great powers of the galaxy. And now, we demand that the Council recognize humanity's sovereignty and right to expand. We will no longer be relegated to the sidelines of galactic affairs." The Council erupted into chaos, with some members calling for immediate retaliation against the human fleet, while others argued for a more cautious approach. Craxon silenced the clamor with a sharp gesture, his eyes glittering with malice. "So you speak boldly, Admiral," he said, "but words are cheap. If humanity truly wishes to be recognized as a great power, then you must prove your strength in the traditional Prilorian way, through ritual combat." Commander Reynolds tensed, his hand tightening on his weapon, but Admiral Parker raised a hand to stay him. "I accept your challenge, Counselor," he said evenly. "Name your champion, and I will face them in single combat." Gasps of surprise echoed through the chamber. Even Commander Reynolds looked stunned by the Admiral's decision, but Gary Parker stood firm, his gaze locked with Craxon's. He knew that this was humanity's moment, a chance to prove beyond any doubt that they were a force to be reckoned with. The die had been cast. The fate of humanity and perhaps the entire galaxy would be decided in the ancient rite of ritual combat. And Admiral Gary Parker was ready to fight for his species' future among the stars. The massive arena primaris loomed before Admiral Parker as he strode through the gate, the Terran Marines at his back. Tens of thousands of alien spectators packed the stands, a cacophony of clicks, hisses and trills filling the air. Prilorians, Saurians, Florans. It seemed the entire Galactic Council had turned out to witness this momentous battle. Across the sand-strewn arena floor, Craxon emerged from the opposite gate. The Prilorian intelligence chief was an imposing figure, towering nearly 8 feet tall. His body was sheathed in a thick, chitinous exoskeleton, scars from countless battles etched into the dark carapace. In his 4-fingered hands, he gripped a massive energy blade, its crackling edge casting eerie shadows across his insectoid features. Admiral Parker, by contrast, looked almost diminutive. He wore his standard-issue Terran combat armor, a lightweight polymer weave designed more for shipboard firefights than ritual combat. At his side hung a simple plasma sword, its blue-white blade a pale imitation of Craxon's fearsome weapon. As the two combatants approached the center of the arena, the differences in their sizes and armaments became starkly apparent. The odds, it seemed, were heavily stacked in Craxon's favor. A bell tolled, its deep boom echoing through the arena. The ritual combat had begun. Craxon wasted no time, surging forward with a speed that belied his bulk. His energy blade sang through the air, a searing arc of destruction aimed at the human admiral's head. But Parker was quick. He dove into a roll, the sizzling blade passing inches above him. Coming up to his feet, he ignited his own sword, the plasma blade thrumming to life. Craxon pressed the attack, his powerful blows raining down like hammer strikes. Parker gave ground, his lighter armor allowing him to stay just ahead of the Prilorian's onslaught. He ducked and wove, using his agility to avoid the worst of the blows. But he couldn't evade forever. Craxon's blade scored a glancing hit, searing through the combat armor on Parker's shoulder. The Admiral gritted his teeth against the pain, the acrid scent of burnt polymer filling his nostrils. Seeing an opening, Parker lunged, his plasma sword licking out. The tip scored across Craxon's thorax, leaving a glowing welt in the chitin. The Prilorian hissed in pain and anger. The battle raged on, the two champions trading blows back and forth across the arena floor. Parker scored several more hits, each one weakening Craxon's exoskeleton further. But the Prilorian gave as good as he got, his energy blade leaving a network of scorched lines across the Admiral's armor. Craxon, enraged by the human's surprising skill, redoubled his assault. His blade moved in a blur, a relentless barrage that forced Parker back. The Admiral's plasma sword flashed desperately as he tried to parry the blows. Then, with a sizzling clash, Craxon's blade sliced through Parker's sword hilt. The plasma blade flickered and died as the ruined weapon spun away across the sand. Parker found himself disarmed, Craxon's energy blade at his throat. The Prilorian loomed over the human, mandibles clicking in triumph. He raised his blade for the killing stroke, and Parker moved. His hand darted to a hidden recess in his armor's wrist, drawing out a compact plasma blaster. The weapon had been a closely guarded secret, a last-ditch option. Parker brought the blaster up and fired, all in one lightning motion. The concentrated plasma bolt struck Craxon's exoskeleton at a weakened joint, blasting through the chitin. The Prilorian staggered, his blade falling from suddenly nerveless fingers. Craxon's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked down at the smoking hole in his thorax. He toppled backward, his massive body crashing to the arena sand. The plasma bolt had pierced his heart. The Prilorian intelligence chief was dead before he hit the ground. For a moment there was stunned silence. Then the arena erupted. The Prilorian spectators surged to their feet, hissing and chittering in fury. The human contingent, in contrast, roared their approval, cheering their victorious champion. In the center of the chaos, Admiral Parker stood over his fallen foe, the plasma blaster still gripped in his hand. He had won the ritual combat, and with it, a chance for humanity to claim its rightful place on the galactic stage. But as the enraged Prilorians began to surge toward the arena floor, the Admiral knew that his battle was far from over. As Admiral Parker strode back into the council chamber, flanked by his Marine escort, the scene that greeted him was one of utter chaos. The various alien delegates were in a frenzy, shouting and gesticulating wildly. The Prilorian contingent, in particular, seemed on the verge of outright violence. High Counselor Zaxxon, his exoskeleton still glistening with Craxon's blood, surged to his feet. "This is an outrage," he bellowed, his mandibles clacking furiously. "The human has murdered our champion in cold blood. We demand retribution." A chorus of chittering agreement rose from the other Prilorians. Some even went so far as to draw their energy blades, the weapons humming ominously. Admiral Parker held up his hands, his expression calm but firm. "Counselors, please," he said, his voice cutting through the din. "I acted in self-defense, as the rules of ritual combat allow. Craxon fought honorably, but in the end I emerged victorious." The human's words did little to quell the Prilorian's fury. Zaxxon pointed a trembling claw at Parker, his compound eyes blazing with hatred. "You used a cowardly trick, a hidden weapon. You humans have no honor." The other council members, while not as overtly hostile as the Prilorians, looked upon Parker with a mixture of fear and suspicion. The display of human technology and combat prowess had clearly shaken them. Sensing an opportunity, Parker pressed on. "Counselors, I come to you now not as a conqueror, but as a potential ally. Humanity seeks not to dominate, but to cooperate." He took a step forward, his gaze sweeping the chamber. "I propose a new alliance between the Terran Confederation and the Galactic Council, one based on mutual respect, trade, and technological exchange. In return for recognizing humanity's sovereignty and right to expand, we are willing to share some of our most advanced breakthroughs." Parker gestured to Commander Reynolds, who tapped a command into his wrist console. A holographic display flickered to life, showcasing schematics of human ships and technology. "Our new faster-than-light drive could revolutionize trade and exploration for all species," Parker explained. "And our energy shield technology could provide unparalleled protection for your ships and colonies." A murmur rippled through the council as the members considered the human's offer. Some looked intrigued, others skeptical, but all recognized the potential benefits of an alliance with such a technologically advanced species. Zaxxon, however, was not swayed. "You think you can buy our forgiveness with trinkets?" he snarled. "Craxon's death must be avenged." Parker met the Prilorian's furious gaze unflinchingly. "I understand your grief, Counselor, but more bloodshed will solve nothing. As a show of good faith, I have ordered the Terran fleet to stand down. We are even prepared to assist in repairing any damage our sudden arrival may have caused." For a long moment, Zaxxon glared at the human admiral, his claws twitching as if eager to tear into Parker's flesh. But then, slowly, he lowered his head. "Very well," he ground out. "The Prilorian delegation will consider your proposal." As the council session adjourned, Parker and his team wasted no time. They split off to corner individual council members, engaging in intense, hushed negotiations. Alliances were forged, trade deals struck, and promises of technological exchange made. Slowly but surely, Admiral Parker was weaving a web of diplomacy that would secure humanity's place in the galaxy. It would not be an easy road, he knew. Trust would have to be earned, old rivalries and prejudices overcome. But for the first time in history, the future looked bright for both humanity and the Galactic Council. A new era of cooperation and prosperity beckoned. And Admiral Gary Parker would be at the forefront of it all. Amidst the tense negotiations and diplomatic maneuvering, Admiral Parker slipped away to a secluded conference room deep within the bowels of the TDS Prometheus. Waiting for him was a cloaked figure, his reptilian features obscured beneath a heavy hood. As the door hissed shut behind him, the figure turned, revealing the scaled visage of Ambassador Raxa, the Saurian representative to the Galactic Council. Parker had arranged this clandestine meeting through a series of encrypted transmissions, knowing that the information the Saurian possessed could be the key to securing humanity's position in the galaxy. "Admiral Parker," Raxa hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Parker nodded, his expression guarded. "Ambassador, your message said you had information that could be of great value to humanity." Raxa's eyes glittered in the dim light. "Indeed. For too long the Saurians have suffered under the yoke of Prilorian oppression. They demand tribute, resources, technology, and they crush any resistance with brutal efficiency." The Saurian leaned forward, his claws clicking against the table. "But with your help we could change that. Your victory over Kraxon has shown that the Prilorians are not invincible. If we work together, we could overthrow their dominance and free not just the Saurians, but all the oppressed species of the galaxy." Parker frowned, considering the ambassador's words. "An alliance against the Prilorians is a tempting proposition," he admitted, "but we have to tread carefully. Open rebellion could jeopardize the peace we've just achieved. It's a fragile thing." Raxa waved a dismissive hand. "Peace? There can be no true peace as long as the Prilorians hold the whip, but I understand your hesitation." The Saurian reached into his robes, withdrawing a data chip. "This contains sensitive information about Prilorian military installations, supply lines, and key infrastructure. I'm willing to share it with you, in exchange for your support in our future uprising." Parker took the chip, turning it over in his fingers. The information it contained could be invaluable, giving humanity a critical edge over their Prilorian rivals. But the price— "I can't commit to open rebellion," Parker said at last. "But perhaps there's another way, a covert operation, to weaken the Prilorians from within. We have stealth technology, infiltration teams. We could strike at their key facilities, sabotage their infrastructure." Raxa's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope in their depths. "And in the meantime, you could provide us with advanced weapons, training. Help us build our strength in secret until the time is right." Parker nodded. "Exactly. We undermine the Prilorians, empower the Saurians and other oppressed species, and when the moment comes, you'll be ready to strike." The Saurian grinned, his teeth gleaming in the shadows. "I like the way you think, Admiral. This could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship." "Maria," he said, handing her the data chip, "I need you to verify this information and then start putting together a covert ops team. We're going to be doing some delicate work behind enemy lines." Hernandez took the chip, her eyes alight with anticipation. "Understood, Admiral. I'll get our best people on it." As the plan began to take shape, Admiral Parker couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking a razor's edge. One misstep, and the fragile peace he had fought so hard for could shatter, plunging the galaxy into a war unlike any it had ever seen. But if they succeeded, if they could free the oppressed and bring true balance to the galaxy, it would be worth any risk. The game was on, and the stakes had never been higher. Deep within the Prilorian research facility, a young scientist named Zaxus hunched over his workstation, his compound eyes flickering with excitement. The compact fusion reactor prototype pulsed with a soft blue glow, its sleek casing belying the incredible power contained within. Zaxus had spent years working on this groundbreaking technology, pouring his brilliant mind into its creation. But as he looked around at the oppressive walls of the facility, at the armed guards patrolling the corridors, a sense of disillusionment settled in his thorax. The Prilorian government had become increasingly authoritarian, crushing dissent and hoarding resources, and the Galactic Council, once a beacon of hope, now seemed impotent in the face of Prilorian aggression. Zaxus knew he had to act. Steeling himself, he activated a secret comms channel, one he had painstakingly encrypted. Admiral Parker of the Terran Confederation, he clicked in accented Galactic standard. I am Zaxxus, a Prylorian scientist. I have a proposition for you. Light years away aboard the TDS Prometheus, Admiral Parker studied the message with keen eyes. A Prylorian defector offering advanced technology. It seemed almost too good to be true. But as he reviewed Zaxxus's schematics, his eyes widened. This fusion reactor, it was light years ahead of anything the Terrans or even the Prylorians currently had. With this tech, humanity could gain a decisive advantage. Commander Reynolds, Parker barked, his decision made. Assemble a strike team. We're going to extract this scientist. Reynolds snapped a crisp salute. Aye, sir, I'll coordinate with our Saurian allies. Their commandos will be invaluable for this op. As the strike team geared up in the armory, tension mixed with anticipation. They checked their plasma rifles strapped on nano-weave armor. This mission could change everything. The Saurian commandos were already waiting in the hangar bay, their scaled faces grim with determination. As the Terran Marines boarded the stealth dropship, Reynolds clasped forearms with the Saurian leader. For the future, the commando hissed. Reynolds nodded. For the future. With a shimmer of active camouflage, the dropship slipped out of the Prometheus's bay, rocketing towards the Prylorian research base. In the cockpit, Senior Chief Thompson guided the craft with expert precision, his jaw set in concentration. The dropship settled into a hidden crevice, its ramp lowering silently. Reynolds and his team emerged into the airless void, mag boots clanking on the rocky surface. At the airlock control panel, a Saurian slicer got to work, his claws dancing over the keys. With a hiss of pressurization, the airlock cycled open. They were in. But as they emerged into the corridor beyond, alarms blared to life. Prylorian guards boiled out of side passages, plasma rifles crackling. Contact front, Reynolds bellowed, dropping into a firing stance. Blue plasma bolts stitched the walls as the team fought their way deeper into the facility. A Saurian commando took a hit, his armor sizzling. A Terran Marine dragged him into cover, slapping a nanosalve patch over the wound. Push forward, Reynolds urged, lobbing a plasma grenade. The explosion ripped through a knot of Prylorian guards, buying them precious seconds. Hacking through blast doors, they raced into the heart of the research wing. Zaxxus was there, waiting anxiously, the fusion reactor clutched to his thorax. I knew you would come, he clicked, relief palpable. Reynolds grinned fiercely. Thank us later, we're not out of this yet. Alarms howled as they fought their way back to the airlock, Zaxxus shielded in their midst. Prylorian reinforcements were pouring in, the air thick with plasma fire. At the airlock, Thompson brought the dropship swooping in, its hull pitted by defensive fire. Get in now! They piled aboard, Prylorian bolts sizzling past. As the ramp sealed shut, Thompson punched the engines to full burn, the inertial compensators straining. Prylorian fighters scrambled to pursue, their engines flaring. Plasma cannons spat fire, stitching lines of destruction across the void. Thompson jinked and wove, coaxing every iota of speed and agility from the dropship. The Saurian door gunners returned fire, their heavy plasma repeaters chewing into the Prylorian formation. One fighter shattered in a ball of flame. Another spun away, leaking atmosphere. But more kept coming, their cannons relentless. Warning indicators screamed in the cockpit as Thompson gritted his teeth, holding course just a little further. With a bone-shaking roar, the dropship slammed into the Prometheus's landing bay, skidding across the deck in a shower of sparks. They had made it. As the strike team disembarked, supporting a shaken but exhilarated Zaxxus, Admiral Parker strode forward, his eyes locked on the fusion reactor, gleaming in the scientist's grasp. Dr. Zaxxus, I presume, Parker said, offering a hand. Welcome to the Terran Confederation. Let's talk about this technology of yours. In a secure briefing room, Zaxxus laid out the true extent of his creation. This fusion reactor is only the beginning, he explained, his voice trembling with excitement. The principles it uses, they could revolutionize propulsion, energy weapons, shields. Given time and resources, I believe I can develop ships and weapons far beyond anything the galaxy has seen. Parker leaned forward, his eyes alight. And what were the Prilorians planning to do with this technology? Zaxxas shuddered, his antennae drooping. They wanted to create a new class of warship, one equipped with unimaginably powerful weapons and defenses. With such ships, they could crush any resistance, dominate the galaxy utterly. The Admiral nodded grimly. That cannot be allowed to happen. Dr. Zaxxas, you will have every resource the Terran Confederation can provide. We must unlock the full potential of your technology before the Prilorians realize what they have lost. As Zaxxas was escorted to his new lab, already buzzing with ideas, Parker turned to his officers. This is a game-changer, people. If we can integrate this fusion tech into our own ships and weapons, we might just gain the edge we need to check Prilorian aggression and ensure a free future for the galaxy. He straightened, his gaze hardening. But make no mistake, this is also a race against time. The Prilorians will not take this loss lightly. We must be ready for anything. The bridge crew nodded, their expressions mirroring their admiral's determination. The stakes had just been raised, the board reset, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. In the heart of the TDS Prometheus, a new front had opened up in the Shadow War, one fought not with plasma cannons and stealth ships, but with the raw power of innovation and scientific discovery. The fusion reactor, pulsing at the core of the human flagship, promised to be the key to victory. But even as human and Saurian engineers swarmed over the device, racing to unravel its secrets, across the galaxy ancient powers stirred in their slumber, drawn by the scent of new technologies and shifting paradigms. Change was coming to the stars, and the Prometheus flew at its vanguard, the tip of the spear pointed at the heart of the Prilorian Empire. But what other dangers lurked in the void, waiting to be awakened? Only time would tell. In the heart of the Terran Confederation, Admiral Parker sat in his private quarters aboard the TDS Prometheus, his brow furrowed in concentration as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Suddenly, an urgent message from Terran intelligence flashed across his console, marked with the highest priority. Parker's eyes widened as he read the shocking contents. Evidence had surfaced implicating Councillor Zephyx, the Luminite representative on the Galactic Council, in a clandestine plot to undermine the budding human-Saurian alliance. Zephyx, it seemed, had been working with a rogue faction of Prilorians to sabotage the humans' fusion technology research and frame the Saurians for the attack. The Admiral's mind raced as he considered the implications. If Zephyx succeeded, the fragile trust between humanity and the Saurians would be shattered, leaving both vulnerable to Prilorian aggression. The Galactic Council itself could be torn apart by the betrayal. Parker knew he had to act quickly. He summoned his senior staff, Commander Reynolds, Lieutenant Commander Hernandez, and Dr. Zaxxas, and briefed them on the situation. Together they formulated a plan to confront Zephyx and expose his treachery before the Council. Under the guise of discussing the integration of Zaxxas's fusion technology into the Council's fleet, Parker arranged a private meeting with Zephyx aboard the Luminite's flagship. The Admiral and his team boarded a shuttle, their faces grim with determination. As they docked with the Luminite vessel, Parker turned to his officers. Remember, we need hard evidence of Zephyx's betrayal. Hernandez, make sure the hidden cameras are transmitting to the Council chambers. Reynolds, be ready to move if things turn hostile. The team nodded, checking their weapons and equipment. The airlock hissed open, revealing a contingent of Luminite honor guards. They escorted the humans through the ship's gleaming corridors, their crystalline bodies pulsing with inner light. Zephyx awaited them in his private conference room, his translucent form hovering behind a glowing table. "Admiral Parker," he greeted, his voice resonating like chimes, "I trust your journey was pleasant. Shall we begin our discussions on the fusion technology?" Parker remained standing, his gaze hard. "Actually, Counselor, there's another matter we need to address first." He nodded to Hernandez, who tapped a command into her wrist console. A holographic display sprang to life above the table, showing damning evidence of Zephyx's communications with the Prilorian rogue faction. Surveillance footage, intercepted transmissions, financial records, all pointing to the Luminites' complicity in the plot against the human-Saurian alliance. Zefix's glow flickered, his composure slipping. What is the meaning of this? These accusations are baseless. Parker stepped forward, his voice cold. The evidence is irrefutable, Counselor. You've been conspiring with the Prilorians to sabotage our efforts and frame our allies. How do you explain these transmissions, these payments? The Luminite drew himself up, his form pulsing erratically. I will not stand for this insult. Guards, remove these humans at once. But the honor guards remained still, their faceted eyes fixed on the damning display. Parker allowed himself a grim smile. I'm afraid your guards won't be helping you, Zefix. You see, this entire conversation is being broadcast to the Galactic Council as we speak. They're seeing the same evidence I am. Zefix's glow dimmed to a sickly grey, his facade of righteousness crumbling away. Faced with the undeniable truth, he seemed to deflate. You have to understand, he pleaded, desperation seeping into his harmonic voice. The Prilorians have been the dominant power for centuries. The stability of the galaxy depends on their leadership. I was only trying to maintain the status quo for the good of all species. The honor guards moved to flank Zefix, their crystalline limbs forming shimmering restraints. The Luminite offered no resistance as he was led away to face the judgment of his peers. As Parker and his team boarded their shuttle to return to the Prometheus, the Admiral couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Zefix's betrayal had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, undermining the very foundations of the fragile peace they had achieved. On viewscreens across the galaxy, the historic scene played out. The once revered Luminite being marched from his own ship in chains, his treachery laid bare for all to see. In council chambers and command centers, in the halls of power and the depths of space, a single question echoed. Who could be trusted in this brave new age, as the old order crumbled and the future hung in the balance? In the wake of Councillor Zefix's arrest and the revelation of his betrayal, the Galactic Council teetered on the brink of chaos. The once unified assembly devolved into a cacophony of shouting, accusations and recriminations. The fragile trust that Admiral Parker had worked so hard to build lay in tatters. In the council chambers, the avian quarry and the plant-like Florans led the charge against humanity. Their representatives fluttered and rustled with agitation, their voices raised in protest. The Floran representative, a writhing mass of vines and leaves, hissed its agreement. We must reconsider their membership, it rasped, sap oozing from its bark-like skin. Their continued involvement will only lead to more chaos. Other delegates murmured their assent, a tide of anti-human sentiment swelling through the chamber. Admiral Parker stood firm at his podium, his posture rigid as he faced the storm. But even as the council descended into discord, a new threat was rising. On the Prilorian homeworld, a swarm of military transports descended upon the capital city, disgorging heavily armed soldiers onto the streets. At their head strode General Zaxxon, his chitinous armor gleaming in the harsh sunlight. The Prilorian guards, loyal to the moderate government, moved to intercept the invaders. But Zaxxon's forces were too quick, too ruthless. They cut through the defenders like a plasma scythe through grass, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. In the government palace, the Prilorian Prime Minister cowered behind his desk as the doors to his office burst open. Zaxxon loomed in the doorway, flanked by his elite guard. Your time is over, Prime Minister, the general hissed, his mandibles clicking with menace. The Prilorian Empire will rise again under my leadership, and we will start by crushing the humans and their saurian lapdogs. With a flick of his claw, Zaxxon signaled to his troops. They surged forward, seizing the Prime Minister and dragging him away to an uncertain fate. The coup was swift, brutal, and complete. As news of the Prilorian upheaval reached the Council, Admiral Parker sprang into action. He knew that Zaxxon would waste no time in mobilizing his forces for an all-out assault on humanity and its allies. The Admiral summoned Commander Reynolds to his quarters, the weight of the situation etched on his face. "Jack, I need you to lead a diplomatic mission to the Hydrons and the Kaziks," he ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "We need their support, now more than ever. Convince them that siding with Zaxxon will only lead to their own downfall." Reynolds snapped a crisp salute. "Aye, sir, I'll do whatever it takes." As Reynolds and his team boarded a sleek diplomatic shuttle, Lieutenant Commander Hernandez and Dr. Zaxxus huddled in the Prometheus engineering bay. Around them, a frenzy of activity unfolded as human and saurian scientists worked to integrate the revolutionary fusion technology into their ship's systems. Zaxxus's claws danced over a holographic display, making minute adjustments to the reactor schematics. "If we can get this right," he muttered, his voice taut with concentration, "it could give us the edge we need against Zaxxon's fleet." Hernandez nodded, her face grim. "We'll get it right," she vowed. "We have to." But even as the Allies raced to prepare their defenses, a chilling transmission reached the Prometheus's bridge. On the view screen, the image of a massive Prilorian fleet filled the screen, a sea of bristling warships led by a behemoth of a flagship. "Admiral Parker," came Zaxxon's grating voice dripping with malice. "I am General Zaxxon, the new leader of the Prilorian Empire, and I am here to deliver an ultimatum." The general's compound eyes glittered with cruel anticipation. "Your pathetic colony on New Terra lies in my path. Evacuate your civilians and surrender the planet to me, or I will burn it to ashes. You have 1 solar day to comply." The transmission cut out, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Admiral Parker gripped the console, his knuckles white. He knew that New Terra, with its millions of human and alien settlers, could never be evacuated in time. They had no choice. They would have to fight. And against the might of Zaxxon's armada, the fate of the colony, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung by a thread. The war had begun, and the TDS Prometheus raced into the fire. The Prilorian dreadnought PNS Invictus loomed in the void above New Terra, its hull bristling with plasma cannons and torpedo launchers. On the bridge, General Zaxxon stood tall, his compound eyes gleaming with malevolent anticipation as he surveyed the approaching human and saurian fleet. "All ships engage the enemy," Zaxxon hissed, his mandibles clicking with barely restrained fury. "Crush them beneath the might of the Prilorian Empire." The Invictus shuddered as its weapons roared to life, spewing forth a maelstrom of plasma bolts and antimatter warheads. The Allied fleet responded in kind, their newly upgraded ships powered by the revolutionary fusion reactors developed by Dr. Zaxxus. On the bridge of the TDS Prometheus, Admiral Parker gripped the command console as the ship rocked under the onslaught. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate the Allied forces, their faces grim with determination. The Prometheus surged forward, its shields flaring as it absorbed a barrage of plasma fire. The ship's forward batteries unleashed a salvo of fusion-powered torpedoes, the glowing projectiles corkscrewing through the void towards the Invictus. The Prilorian dreadnought's point defense lasers flashed, picking off the torpedoes one by one. But a handful made it through, slamming into the ship's hull with devastating force. Explosions blossomed along the Invictus's flank, venting atmosphere and debris into space. On the bridge, Zaxxon snarled in rage as damage reports flooded in. "Divert power to the shields," he snapped, his claws gouging furrows in the command console. "And bring us about to target that damned human flagship." The battle raged on for hours, the void above New Terra lit by the flashes of detonating ships and the glare of energy weapons. Despite the technological edge granted by Zaxxus's fusion reactors, the Allied fleet found itself hard-pressed to hold back the sheer numbers of the Prilorian armada. Admiral Parker watched with growing concern as the tactical display showed more and more Allied ships winking out, overwhelmed by the relentless Prilorian assault. He knew that they couldn't hold out much longer, not at this rate. "Admiral, the Invictus is turning to target us," Lieutenant Commander Hernandez called out, her voice taut with tension. "They're charging weapons." Parker's jaw tightened as he made his decision. It was a gamble, but one they had to take. "Commander Reynolds, assemble a boarding party. We're going to take the fight to Zaxxon." Reynolds nodded grimly, already moving towards the bridge's exit. "Aye, sir, we'll make that bug regret the day he ever crossed humanity." As Reynolds and his team of Terran Marines and Saurian commandos raced to the hangar bay, Admiral Parker turned to Hernandez. "Maria, I need you to keep the Invictus occupied. Buy Reynolds the time he needs to get aboard and find Zaxxon." Hernandez met Parker's gaze, her dark eyes filled with a fierce determination. "We'll hold them, Admiral, no matter the cost." The Prometheus and its escorts surged towards the Invictus, weapons blazing as they sought to draw the dreadnought's fire away from the approaching boarding craft. On the Invictus's bridge, Zaxxon let out a hiss of surprise as he saw the small ship speeding towards his vessel, weaving through the storm of plasma bolts and missiles. "Shoot them down," he snarled, but it was too late. The boarding craft slammed into the Invictus hull, disgorging Reynolds and his team into the bowels of the Prylorian ship. The corridors of the Invictus echoed with the sound of plasma fire and the screams of dying Prylorians as Reynolds and his soldiers fought their way towards the bridge. The Prylorian defenders fought with the ferocity of cornered beasts, but the Allied warriors were relentless, driven by a grim determination to end Zaxxon's reign of terror. At last they burst onto the bridge, plasma rifles spitting death. Zaxxon rose from his command throne, an energy blade leaping to life in his clawed hand. With a roar of challenge, he charged towards Reynolds, the two warriors meeting in a clash of sparks and sizzling plasma. They dueled across the bridge, energy blade against plasma saber, as the battle raged around them. Zaxxon was a formidable opponent, his strength and speed enhanced by his chitinous exoskeleton. But Reynolds fought with the skill and fury of a man who knew that the fate of worlds rested on his shoulders. With a final desperate lunge, Reynolds drove his saber through Zaxxon's chest, the plasma blade punching through the Prylorian's armor and into his heart. Zaxxon let out a gurgling hiss, his compound eyes widening in shock and pain. He toppled backwards, his energy blade clattering to the deck. But even as Reynolds stood triumphant over his foe, he felt a searing pain lance through his own chest. He looked down to see a smoking hole in his armor, the edges of the wound charred and blackened. Zaxxon's dying shot had found its mark. Reynolds staggered, his vision blurring as he felt his life ebbing away. With the last of his strength he reached for the detonator on his belt, the one linked to the explosives his team had planted throughout the Invictus's engine room. He thumbed the detonator, and the Invictus vanished in a blinding flash of light, a new sun blooming in the void above New Terra. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Parker watched in stunned silence as the Prylorian flagship disintegrated, taking Commander Reynolds and his brave warriors with it. But even as grief threatened to overwhelm him, Parker saw the Prylorian fleet falter, their resolve crumbling with the loss of their leader. One by one, the enemy ships began to turn away, fleeing back towards Prylorian space. The battle was won, but the cost had been staggering. Thousands of human and Saurian lives had been lost, including some of Parker's closest friends and allies. As the remnants of the Allied fleet limped back towards their homeworlds, the Admiral couldn't help but wonder if the price of victory had been too high. In the days that followed, as the Galactic Council struggled to come to terms with the new balance of power, Admiral Parker found himself standing on the observation deck of the Prometheus, gazing out at the stars. He thought of Commander Reynolds and the countless others who had given their lives to protect the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be new challenges and threats to face. But as he looked out at the infinite expanse of the galaxy, he felt a flicker of hope kindle in his heart. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and though the journey had been baptized in blood and fire, Parker knew that they would not falter. They would press on, guided by the sacrifices of the fallen, until they had claimed their rightful place among the stars. The observation deck's door hissed open behind him, and Parker turned to see Lieutenant Commander Hernandez standing in the entrance. Her face was drawn and weary, but there was a fierce light in her eyes that mirrored his own. "What's our next move, Admiral?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of all they had endured. Parker turned back to the stars, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "We keep going, Maria. We keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries, and we make damn sure that the sacrifices of those who came before us were not in vain." He placed a hand on the viewport, his reflection superimposed over the endless vista of space. "The galaxy is waiting for us, Lieutenant Commander. Let's not keep it waiting any longer." Together, they left the observation deck, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. For in the end, that was the very essence of what it meant to be human, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. The battle for New Terra had been won, but the struggle for the soul of the galaxy had only just begun, and Admiral Parker and the brave men and women of the Terran Confederation would be there to lead the charge, no matter where the winds of fate might take them. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.